Hi guys, this is Owen at Cafe de Paraiso. We are a sustainable social impact coffee roasting company based in Las Vegas, Nevada, serving you specialty coffees from around the world. And our coffees are all available on our website, cafedeparaiso.com. So if you go there, click on Our Coffees. All the coffees that you see there, we're donating at least $1 to charities for every pound of coffee we sell. Today, I'm here to show you guys how to do a professional coffee cupping. And so we've got two coffees here today. This is our Guatemala Wewe Tenango coffee. This is available on our website. We also have our Ethiopia Limu G2. The G2 stands for grade 2. So these are two very good coffees. They're similar in a couple different ways. These are just about a medium roast, kind of light medium. And we're going to do a coffee cupping. The process takes about 14 minutes or so. And you can do this with 2 coffees, you could do it with just 1, you could do it with 10 coffees. All you need to do is you need to have the right amount of hot water at 200 degrees available and ready to fill up these cups. And so then you can start brewing these and then have some spoons available so that you can break the crust, move that the grinds that are floating on top of the water after 4 minutes, and then clean the top of the coffee cups to get the excess grinds off the top, and so that then they're a clean flat surface. You'll keep the coffee grinds sitting inside the cup, immersed in that coffee the whole time, and then after 12 to 14 minutes, then you take your spoon, which should be sort of like a soup spoon shape, and you will, with a clean cup of water next to it, you'll sanitize your spoon. And then getting just a little bit from the surface, you'll sip that to test that coffee. And then you'll do that, you'll sanitize your spoon before going to the next coffee, and you'll go down the line and you'll test each coffee that you're doing a cupping for. Typically for professional coffee cupping, you'll have a score sheet where you're rating things like the aroma and fragrance of the coffee. Fragrance is the dry smell, and the aroma is the wet smell after the coffee's wet. And you'll also be testing things like the flavor, the aftertaste, the acidity, the body. And those are all different attributes that professional coffee cuppers will analyze when they're trying to determine the actual score of the coffees. And coffees have a score just like wine. Score goes up to 100, and a lot of coffees that are specialty are typically rated around between 80 to 82 and up. So some of the best coffees I've ever had were like 90 or 92 scoring. And a lot of the specialty coffees that you might have at your local specialty coffee shop might be somewhere in that range between 80 to 89 and up, depending on which coffee it is. So that's how we do coffee cupping. We're going to go ahead and do that right now on the video so you guys can see how it works. So now I'm boiling my water. I've got some extra cups here available for my coffee cupping, and I've got my 2 coffees ready. The coffees are pre-ground. For the coffee cupping, the idea is you want to have all your variables consistent. So for this coffee cupping, we're using the same cups that we always do. These cups are an 8 fluid ounce capacity, and we have 12 grams of coffee in each of these cups. And what we're going to do is fill up these cups all the way to the top, and I'll be looking and making sure that we've got the water level at the same level for both of these. And then we're going to set our timer, and we're going to make sure that we're timing the brew time so that we can be consistent for each of the steps in this cupping process. And I'm going to wait until the water is no longer violent on the surface. And that's one way for me to maintain a consistent level of temperature with this water. The idea with coffee is you want to have every little variable consistent, from the temperature of your water to the size of the grinds, the amount of water to coffee that you're using, and the amount of time that you're exposing that coffee to the water. So I'm going to start my timer now as I pour. I'll stop there with that one. I'll come back and add a little bit more water. I want to be consistent with each step that I do. With these coffees, because they're so freshly roasted, there is a lot of gas escaping from these beans. Degassing is a common aspect of any coffee that's roasted. All coffees will have a degassing period. And the closer to when the coffee was roasted, the more degassing will be taking place. So we've got just about the same amount of water in both of these. I'm going to add just a tiny little bit here. All right. So our timer's there. We've got 1 minute into the brew now. What I'm also going to do is I'd smelled these before. That was the dry fragrance. Now I'm going to smell these right now a little bit with the wet aroma. It's very interesting. This coffee has kind of a chocolate and nutty and sweet flavor. It's kind of a milk chocolate coming off. This one is a little bit more nuts and chocolate. These are two very good coffees that we have. This Guatemala is one of our top sellers. This also is our coffee that's featured in our espresso blend right now. This Ethiopia Limu is very good. This one typically has kind of a peanutty flavor, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of toffee there, which is sort of indicative of a lot of Ethiopian coffees. And so we'll be waiting until 4 minutes. And at 4 minutes, I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to wet it and preheat it. And then I'm going to move the grinds off the top surface of the coffees and smell it as I do that, moving my spoon 3 times and smelling. Then I'll rinse my spoon and do that with the other one. If I had more coffees, then I would do that with each coffee in succession. And the idea is that we're exposing each coffee to each step in the process at roughly the same amount of time. And the goal here is to have all variables consistent among all the coffees that you're cupping. So I'm going to add some more water to my cup here so I can preheat my spoon. I'll add some water to this second cup, which I know I'm going to be using when I clean the surface of these coffee cups. I'll preheat these other 2 spoons that I'm going to be using to clean the tops of the cups. It looks like fresh brownies that are being baked in your oven, or like a chocolate muffin. That's amazing. Wow, I'm really excited about this Guatemala here. I'm excited about trying both of these. I just want to eat these as if they were some kind of candy. So the coffee cupping is really super critical, and the thing that's really great about it for someone like yourself at home who just likes different coffees is this is a way where you can remove other variables that might be changing the flavor of your coffee, where you can do a real objective analysis and side-by-side comparison of different coffees at different roast levels, or coffees from different countries, or coffees from different roasting companies. So it's a great way to be able to test your coffee. It's fun. It's fun to think about the flavor analysis that you go through when you're comparing and contrasting different attributes in coffee, such as acidity, mouthfeel, body, balance, and also the smells and the flavors. So we're at 4 minutes now. I'm going to go ahead and start breaking the crust for my first coffee here, our Guatemala. So smelling that, I'm smelling that chocolate. I'm getting sweetness coming through. There's a caramel toffee kind of flavor there. It's definitely like a caramelization of sugars kind of smell that I'm getting through that. And when I do that cupping, I have these on a plate right now, which you might want to do. sometimes when you do that cupping, you'll be moving the grinds off of the cup, which is totally fine. So you make a little bit of a mess, but that's why we have this on a plate, so we don't get the table messy. It makes cleanup real easy. So I'm going to do that now with our Ethiopian coffee. And this one has a that kind of light, nutty flavor. Both of these I'm very familiar with. I've cupped these coffees quite a bit before. So for me, there's no surprises here, but it's always interesting. Every roast is a little bit different. Every coffee has its own different qualities, and each time you do a cupping like this, it gives you an opportunity to sense and experience the coffee in new ways. And sometimes, depending on your environment, depending on the types of cups you're using, depending upon what you've been doing that day, the experience of sensing a coffee, the perception that you have in your brain can be different. For example, they've done studies that show that depending on the size and shape and weight and color of a cup, it's actually going to change your flavor experience of what you're perceiving in that beverage in your cup by simply changing the receptacle. And that's because our brains don't work in a vacuum. When we're sensing something, it mixes in with a lot of other things. So that's part of why with coffee cupping, the idea is we want to parse out different aspects of the coffees to try to understand more clearly and more objectively exactly what is the acidity level, what's the kind of brightness in this coffee, and is that favorable, and what intensity level does that have? And we do that same thing with different flavors. And then you do that same analysis with the mouthfeel of the coffee. Is it very viscous? Is it watery? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel astringent? Is it rough or gritty in your mouth? All of those things are aspects of the mouthfeel. And if we try to objectively pinpoint each of those individually, ignoring our perceptions and the other kind of thoughts that we associate with those things, but just trying to focus on each of those attributes, that's how we can objectively be able to score coffees. And Q graders go through a rigorous testing process over several days, taking 20 different tests. And if they fail any one of those tests, then they're not able to acquire that Q grader score. And that test allows them to be able to professionally score and calibrate the qualities of different coffees within the industry. And that's a way for us to then verify, beyond the shadow of a doubt, what is the qualities of different coffees and the sort of overall score of that coffee. So I'm going to now go ahead and clean these coffees. So the way this works is I just use my 2 spoons, and I start one and I put the other one just behind it. I move my spoons around, and I'm removing all of the excess grinds that are on the top surface of this coffee. If I did this with 1 spoon, if I moved that around, I could be chasing the coffee grinds for a long time. So this kind of having 2 spoons, you create a little dam, you sweep those grinds off the top, and it creates a clean surface for when you actually do the cupping. So that way you're not getting coffee grinds in your mouth. I'll do that with the other one here. Great. All right, so now we have our 2 coffees. We have already smelled the dry fragrance. I've already smelled the aroma when I was breaking the crust, exposing the liquid on the top of the coffee, smelling it fresh there. And now, having removed the grinds, removed that crust with my spoons, I'm now just waiting for that 12 to 14 minute mark where I can begin actually doing the cupping with my spoon. And the idea of waiting until 12 minutes is that there are some aspects of flavor sensory experience in your mouth that your taste buds cannot sense if the liquid is too hot. So waiting until 12 to 14 minutes helps to lower the temperature of the coffee so that if you're going to be doing this on a regular basis, or if you're just trying to be consistent, it's better to consistently be cupping the coffee at a temperature that is actually more bearable and easy for yourself and also for others to be sensing. So that's how I learned to do it. Some people want to jump the gun and taste it. You could still get the majority of the flavors through the coffee if I started cupping now at 11 minutes. But I'm going to wait until 12 because that's just how I sort of calibrate that process. You'll also find that if you do a cupping like this and you let your coffee sit and you come back after maybe another 10 minutes, so after 20 minutes of waiting, you cup the coffee, you'll find that the flavors will change and evolve a little bit as the coffee starts to decrease more closer to room temperature. So that's also a very interesting aspect of how the coffee will change in the cupping, and also why that timing consistency is very important as well. So we're almost at 12 minutes now. It's about time to start cupping our coffees. Get my spoon ready here. So we're at 12 minutes. We're just going to go ahead and start with our Guatemala. That was the first one we poured our hot water into. I'm going to dip my spoon in there, just a little bit of coffee. I'm going to sip that like someone who's really rude at the dinner table. And when you first do that sip, you really just want to be thinking about flavor, just getting a general impression of the coffee. Clean your spoon and move on to the next ones. Just take some initial flavor notes. Something else that you can do too is, if you're doing this with a lot of coffees or you don't want to actually be drinking coffee, you could hold another coffee cup, and just like at a wine tasting, you can sip that coffee and then you can spit the coffee out right after you sip it, and that's a way to lower the likelihood that you'll be over-caffeinating yourself, or make it so that you can do this test at nighttime and still be able to get some sleep. So I'm going to go back again to the first one. This is our Guatemala. There's definitely some sweetness or some fruitiness. There's a dark cocoa flavor coming through, a little bit of caramel. Going over here to our limu. Our limu's got a little bit less body. The Guatemala's a little bit heavier in body. The limu has a little bit less flavor complexity. It's a little bit more straightforward. There's a little bit of fruit there mixed with a little bit of light nuttiness. We got some caramel coming through there as well. Going back to the Guatemala. We'll have that kind of more developed, darker tones in the coffee. This coffee is a little bit darker roasted slightly. Both of these are more or less at a medium or a light medium roast. Guatemala a little bit more towards that medium roast level. And I'm getting some, that darker chocolate, a little bit of like cocoa, bitter cocoa, and some caramel in there. It's really fun to go back and kind of ask yourself and over time do this and be comparing different roasts and different beans together. Also get a nice acidity, a nice brightness through this Guatemala. It kind of opens up my mouth, kind of wakes up your tongue and starts and kind of hits the front and also the sides as well as the back of my mouth, which is a very nice experience where it's kind of a full tongue experience. And so that is coffee cupping in a nutshell. I hope you guys enjoyed our video. We're going to be doing more of our coffee cuppings and tastings. Let us know what you liked about this video, and let us know what kind of videos you would like to see, because we love talking about coffee. We love sharing the process of making coffee and doing sensory and flavor analysis, and we'd love to show you all of our different coffees and answer any questions you might have. So don't forget to check us out online, cafeduparaiso.com, and hope you can join us and be the change.